If you've ever wondered how to make your own TX run game, okay, so a game like this, I'm going to show you how to do this in pure JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, so no Canvas. We're not going to be using Canvas as we really want to practice our JavaScript skills and not use any helpers. So once again, this is the product that we are going to be building. It's going to be a T-Rex run game in which you as the T-Rex have to essentially jump over obstacles in order to get to a destination. As always, please do share your projects with me. The styling of this is super basic on purpose so that you can apply your own personal style and flair. I would love to see how you've taken this game, made it your own. Please do share it with me on Instagram, Twitter. I would love to see. So amazing. I'm excited. I'm going to be doing the super simple solution for this. So let's go. Okay, so let's do it. First off, I'm just going to go into WebStorm and start a new project. You can use whatever code editor you wish. Just in WebStorm, you can name your project anything like so. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Chrome T-Rex game, just like that, and create. And this will spin up a directory, so an empty folder for me, in which we're going to put in some files. So if you're using VS Code, if you're using any code editor tool, just make sure you're at this point where you have a folder, and we're going to add some files. Now, first off, I'm going to, of course, create a new file, an HTML file, calling it index, making sure to add the .html extension, which has been added for me thanks to WebStorm. So if you're using something else, just make sure to add .html to make sure your code editor knows to treat this as an HTML file. And here we go, we also have some boilerplate, which has been added for me. So this is great. And you can go ahead and call this whatever you wish. I'm just going to call this T-Rex game, just like so. Okay, so here is our HTML file. Make sure to copy this if you don't have this already. We're also going to create a new file, a style sheet. I'm just going to call it style CSS. So here we go. It's called style.css, making sure to add the CSS extension. We are also going to have an app.js file. So once again, app.js, making sure to add the JS extension to treat this as a JavaScript file. Cool. We're also going to drag in some images. This is super basic. I'm not going to bother doing any organizing. Okay, it's such a small project. So simply what I'm going to do is just drag in these 3 images. So just like so. And just make sure that they are in here on the same level as all the other files. So we have a background. We have the T-Rex itself, and we have some cacti. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. You can take those images from my repository. That's no problem at all. It will be in the description below, or just find some of your own, whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay, great. So now back in the index.html, I'm just going to minimize that. Let's go ahead and link up the style sheet. So using the link tag, it's a self-closing tag. I'm just going to add rel style sheet. And as the href, we put the path to the style CSS file. Okay, as it's on the same level as my index.html file, we don't have to get into any directories or folders or anything like that. We just get the file name. And then I'm going to add a few things into here as well. I'm going to actually use the script tag in the header this time. So this is, you can put it at the bottom of your file, okay? So you can put it here. So after all your HTML elements have loaded, or if you just want to be sure that all the DOM content has loaded, we can use an event listener in the JavaScript file. I'm going to show you how to do it this way, just for those who maybe haven't seen it done this way before. So for this, I'm going to do source app.js, just like so. Okay, and all we're going to do is in the body, we're going to have a div, and I'm going to give this the ID of desert. So just like that. And then an h2 element, which is going to have the ID of alert, so we can pick it out in our JavaScript. And then also we're going to have a div. And we're going to style this div, so I'm going to give it the class name of grid. And in here, we're just going to have the dinosaur. So I'm going to create a div and give this the class name of dino. Okay, so that's literally all the HTML that we are going to have for this project. Here is the full file. Pause here if you need, okay? And when you're ready, let's continue. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And first, let's style it up. So first off, let's grab the element by the ID of desert, because we can style things using IDs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make use of that ID, and I'm going to give this the position. So I'm going to position it on my document, absolute. Okay. And then I'm also going to add a background image. So background image. There we go, that one right there, URL, and then we're going to pass through the URL to the background as a string. So make sure that's a string, and then we're just going to put T-Rex background spelled exactly the same way that it is stored here essentially, so make sure that matches. Great, and then I'm also going to give this a height of 200 pixels. And then if we want to view this, what we can do is just get the path. So copy the path, copy the absolute path, and then we can get up a browser tab and just paste it in like so, and there we go. So now in here, you will see the div with the ID of desert, and we have given it some styling. However, this is not visible quite yet. We've given it a height. We also need to give it a width. I'm going to go with 100%. And there we go. So amazing. This is looking good. I'm happy with that. Next, let's also grab the element by the class name of Dino, so we can add the dinosaur. Once again, we'll use background image, and then we'll use the URL. So just like so, and we'll pass through the string of the dinosaur, which is T-Rex. Just like that. And we're also going to have to assign it a height and a width. So I know that the height of this image is 60 pixels. So I'm going to do that. And the width of it is 60 pixels as well. So that is easy. And there we go. Okay. So there is my dinosaur image right there. As you can see, it's a square. The image, okay, originally was 60 by 60 pixels, which is why I set the height and width to be 60 by 60 pixels. Just keep that in mind if you're trying to use your own image. Great. I also want to position this at the bottom of the parent element. So I'm going to go ahead and put bottom 0, just like that. Okay, but this will not work, as you can see, unless you also have a position here. So position absolute, I can put, and then it will show up here. It will show up at the bottom of the parent element. Okay, great. So amazing. We are done with that for now. Now, what I'd like to do is actually add an animation to the background. So I'm going to do that next. Up here, maybe I'm going to define that animation. So the animation is going to be called slide right. And in fact, I'm going to add that animation here. So slide right is the animation name that I'm going to define. I want this to carry on for 600 seconds. I want it to be infinite and also linear. And then here we're going to add keyframes. So keyframes. And then let's define slide right. And then we're going to go from to, and let's have the background position as 7,000%. And then background position to be 0%. Okay, so there we go. We've defined it right here. And if I refresh, that is what is happening at the moment. So it's kind of going really, really quickly, as you can see right now. Great. This is looking good. So I think it's now time to move on to the JavaScript. The first thing I'm going to do is actually show you how to make the dinosaur jump. So like I said, because we are using the script tag in the header, I need to listen out for when all my DOM content has loaded. And for that, I'm going to grab the whole document and use add event listener. And I'm going to listen out to when all the DOM content has loaded. And then I'm going to use a callback function, because essentially once this happens, then I can call back this function, so I can execute the code in here. So first off, let's actually pick out the element with the class name of Dino. So I'm going to use document again, and then we're going to use a method called query selector to look for an element with the class name of Dino. So dot means class name, and I'm going to save this as a Dino. So we're literally picking it out. If I do console log Dino, Okay, and then we go in here and I refresh and I look in the console log. So here we go, we were literally picking out the div with the class of Dino. You will even see it highlighted on the left. So that's what we have done. While we are here, I'm also going to pick out a few more things. I'm going to go ahead and pick out the div with the class name of grid. So const grid equals document. Once more, we're going to use query selector to look for an element with a class name of grid. Okay, wonderful. So we've picked out those two things. So like I said, maybe let's work on actually working on just making the dinosaur jump. So we're going to write a function for this. The function is called control, just like that. And we're going to literally assign this function. We're going to listen out to the whole document completely. And we're going to add event listener once more. I'm going to listen out for any key ups on the whole document. And if our document does detect that we've lifted our key up, then we essentially call this function. So you could have key up, you can have key down. It's really up to you. Maybe we should have key down. I really don't mind what you choose. Okay, so if we press our key down, let's pass through the event because we need to know which key we press on our keyboard. And in order to do this, we can get the key code. And if e key code equals 32, we're just going to console log jump for now. Okay, so now if you refresh and if I go to my keyboard and press the space bar, you will see jump show up. Okay, as soon as I press the key down, you could have attached this to any key on your keyboard. Okay, you just have to use the key codes, even though you probably shouldn't use key code anymore. I'm going to go with E code and then we're just going to put space, making sure this is a capital S. Okay, so now, ta-da, same thing is happening. So cool, but now actually let's, instead of console logging jump, I'm going to write a function to jump. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's my function for control. Outside here, I'm going to write function jump, just like so. So let's move this down and jump. Well, in order to jump, we're going to have to figure out to move up and move down on a set interval. So for this, I'm going to actually put this on a timer ID. So let timer ID equals, and then I'm going to use set interval to pass through a function. So you could write it like this, function. There we go. If you're doing it this way, you should probably change this to be function as well, just to make everything consistent. But again, it is totally up to you. I'm just doing this in like a super old school way. Okay, so first, maybe let's work on moving up. So move up. To move up, we essentially need to just increment the position, right, of the dino. So if our position on the dinosaur, so here is currently 0 on the bottom, we can actually override this. So actually what I'm going to do is just define the position outside this function. So let position of the dinosaur equals 0. And we're going to override this and then assign it to the CSS property, essentially, using JavaScript. So to move up, well, if we want to move up, we're going to get the position. And what we're going to do is just add 30 to whatever it currently is. It's currently 0. So great, there we go. And then I'm going to get Dino, and I'm going to use style to change the bottom to be the position. And then we also need to add the string of pixels. Okay, so at the moment, it will just go up 30 and nothing else. I'm going to show you this in a bit. The timer ID as well here, we need to get that. And then we also need to, with a set interval, invoke this, let's say every 20 milliseconds. Okay, great. So if I click jump, essentially our dino will go off and it will just keep adding 30 each time. We can also add gravity to that. So maybe let's define gravity here. Let gravity equals 0.9. And we can make it look a little bit more realistic by getting the position after we've added 30 to it and overriding it multiplied by gravity. So it will slow down, right? Because multiplying it by 0.9 will make it kind of slow down. So now at the moment, obviously you can't really see much. I'm just going to assign this whole desert to be at the bottom too, so bottom 0, just so we can see what's going on a little bit more. So now let's refresh, and it should be at the bottom there. And if I go like that, woo, and it kind of stops there. Okay, so it's jumping and then it's stopping. So now we need to write for when we're going down. So let's say that we want to jump up for a certain count. So I'm going to define the count. Let count equals 0 up here. And as soon as we hit 15, so let's work on moving down, move down. If count suddenly equals 15, then we don't want to keep going up anymore. We want to clear the interval timer ID, and let's start another one called let down timer ID equal, and once again we're going to set an interval. I'm going to pass through a function just like so, and we're going to do something. So of course, to get the count to actually go up to 15, we also need to increment it here. So I'm going to do count plus plus, and this should essentially evoke every 20 milliseconds. So we should hit that 15 pretty quick. Okay, and the downtime ID, we're going to invoke every 20 milliseconds as well. So cool. I'm just going to console log going down, just so we can see what is going on. So now if I hit that, and then it invokes going down. Of course, visually we don't see anything, so let's work on that next. So we're going down. However, to show this visually, once again, what I'm going to do is get the position. This time I'm going to -5 from it, and the count we're going to decrement this time. And once again, we're going to multiply the position by gravity, and then we're going to assign whatever the position is to the bottom styling of the dino. Great. So that should look good, apart from, woo, and then it continues to go down, right? So once again, boo, and then it continues to go down. We need to write something that says as soon as the count equals 0, so we then need to clear interval down timer ID and set is jumping to false again, because we're kind of done with the jumping. Okay, great. So I think maybe let set is jumping here. So let is jumping. We're going to start off with it being false. And then as soon as we jump, is jumping is going to be true. So is jumping equals true. Okay, and then when we're finished, it's going to be false again. Cool. So I think this is looking good. Let's give it a go. Ta-da! Okay, so that is my dinosaur jumping. Of course, you can play around this as much as possible. It's really up to you how far you want that dinosaur to jump. Okay, so perhaps if you think he's jumping too high, you could change this to be a 20. It is really up to you. Great. Let's move on. So this function control, we only want to jump if the dinosaur is not currently jumping. So if not jumping, then we can jump. Because if he's currently jumping, we don't want him to double jump, right? And that will happen. So for example, if I comment this out, I'm just going to show you. If you don't wrap it in that, and then you hit jump, you can actually keep jumping like that, which looks really weird. We don't want to do that, which is why we wrap this, like I said, in if it's not jumping, then we can jump. Okay, so this will stop that from happening, right? We can only jump once he hits the bottom again. Great. I'm happy with that. So now let's actually work on adding some obstacles. So we're going to generate obstacles. So for this, I'm just going to move all the way down here. So after this function. So here we are, function generate obstacles, just like that. And first off, I think we should actually create a class name of obstacles. So let's go back in here and we're going to create a class name of obstacle. And this is just essentially going to be an image of our cacti. So once again, we're going to use background image, and I'm going to get the URL. And then what I'm going to do is just pass through whatever our image is. So it's cacti.png, cacti.png, just like that. And of course, once again, we need to set this a width and a height. I know that the width of my image is 60 pixels, and the height of it is 60 pixels as well. Okay, and once again, we need to give this a position of absolute, and we'll start off with it being bottom 0. Make sure that says bottom there. Okay, so at the moment you won't see it. However, if I go ahead and add this using JavaScript, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. In fact, I'm going to call this here. All I'm going to do essentially is create a div. So I'm going to use document, create element, and I'm going to create a div. Of course, this div is just in space at the moment, okay? It doesn't exist anywhere on our document. I'm actually going to call it something to make our lives easier, const obstacle. And now I'm going to essentially get the grid that we picked out earlier, right? The grid, and I'm going to use a method called append child, and I'm going to pass through that obstacle into it, okay? So because we are calling this, that should show up. If you look in the div with ID of desert and you look in the div with the class name of grid, you will see a div has been added, but we haven't added a class name to it. So if I actually get obstacle and use class list add, and then add the class name of obstacle, like so, and then hit refresh, you will see that obstacle there. This is looking great. It's at the bottom because we gave it the property of bottom and gave it the value of 0. And then if we want to maybe move it in another direction, we can do. I'm just going to go ahead and put let obstacle position here be 1000, making sure to spell position correctly. And now I can actually grab the obstacle and use style left to move it 1000 pixel. We need the px there because 1000 pixel is what we need to assign to style left. And this will mean that this will essentially be left. It's off the grid this way, okay? It's hard to see because it's left of this element, okay? But if I hover over it, you will see it kind of showing up. And now here, I'm going to start another set interval. So let timer ID equals set interval, and we're going to pass through a function once more. So just like that, I'm going to invoke this every 20 milliseconds again. And what do we want to do? Well, all I'm going to do is get the obstacle position and -10 from it. And then once again, I need to get the obstacle style left. Okay, so there we go. And then just assign whatever the obstacle position is after we've changed it. Okay, so now, ta-da, you will see that moving all the way there. It will keep going though, as you will see. We need to kind of get rid of it once it reaches this side. So I can do so easily. So up here, before we do that, I'm going to check where it is. If obstacle position is suddenly smaller than 0, well, what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to clear the interval timer ID. So essentially this timer will stop working. And then I'm going to also set is game over as true, so we can stop other things happening. But of course we need to set that up here. So let is game over. We're going to start off with it being false, of course. Okay, now let's go back here. So game over is true, and then we're going to remove all children from the grid. So remove all children. So I'm going to, in order to do this, because there's a few children in the grid, I need to do while. I need to check that if the grid has a first child. And as long as the grid does have a first child, I'm going to get the grid and I'm going to remove child. I'm going to get the grid and remove the last child. So it's going to keep removing the last child over and over again as long as the first child exists. Okay, so there we go. And then also I'm going to pick out the element. So document, we can use get element by ID, sure, and pick out the element with the ID of alert. I'm going to save this as alert. Okay, and now we can get the alert. So just down here. And I'm just going to do alert inner HTML and just put the text of game over. Okay, so there we go. So now, as long as this goes here, the game is over. So this is looking cool. This will carry on running. I'm happy with that. That's what it looks like in the game. You can get it to stop, but I'll leave that styling up to you. Let's get the JavaScript working first. So great. So we've added one obstacle. However, I want to keep essentially generating the obstacles. So I can essentially do so. First off, however, let's actually work on, actually jumping over the obstacle. And for this, we just need to know where the position of the dinosaur is. So if this is true and obstacle position actually is smaller than 60, right? So if this is true and position of the dinosaur is smaller than 60, so if they're both in the same place essentially, then it's a game over. We also need to check if the obstacle position is larger than 0. So if these three things are all true, then we have a game over, okay? So ta-da, it wasn't a game over because all three didn't match, but of course we now need to generate more obstacles. So at the moment, you will still see that the obstacle is carrying on going left, okay? We'll work on solving that in a bit. For now, let's just generate more obstacles. So if is game over is not true, I want to use set timeout to essentially generate another obstacle. So there we go. And then let's just say we want this at 4,000 milliseconds, or we could get a random time. So let's maybe do that. I'm going to do let random time equal, and then I'm going to use math random to multiply a number from 0 to just under 1 by 4,000. Okay, so great. However, this does need to be inside here. So there we go. Make sure it is still in the generate obstacles function. So great, let's check it out. Let's jump over the first one, jump over the second one. And this is being generated randomly. You will see all the obstacles, whoops, and then we are dead. And when we die, all those obstacles are gotten rid of, okay? So of course we want to stop generating obstacles if it's a game over. So that is why another thing we need to do is actually what we should do is say that if is not game over, then we do all of this. So get all of this right here and just paste it in like so, which means we don't need this anymore, okay? Because that is a given. So great, if we now die, the game is over and we're not generating any more obstacles and they've all been deleted as well. Okay, so once again, whoa, this is a tough one. All those obstacles will be added. They'll keep being added. And when there's a game over, they will all be deleted too. All I'm going to do is actually just move this to be under here, just because I think it should belong there. And there we go. If you want, you can even grab the whole body and change the background color to be the same color as the background image. So there we go. Just to kind of hide the fact that it finishes there. It is really up to you. Great. So amazing. I love how this looks. Please, of course, take this to the next level. Style it up as you wish. Really make this your own. This is just kind of the basic skeleton of a T-Rex game so that you can really style it up as you wish. Okay, amazing. Thanks so much. And please do share your own games with me. Perhaps you want to, make this a little bit taller. That is up to you so that it really fits in the dinosaur jumping. Okay, perhaps you don't want a dinosaur, perhaps you want something completely different. I'm going to leave that up to you. Please do share your finished games with me on Twitter, YouTube, whatever really I would love to see. And yeah, perhaps you want to have a high score of how long you've been playing, and the highest score is the person who's been playing the longest, right? Because you can do it by time, you could do it by obstacles jumped, you could do it however you wish. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.